1974's Chinatown is one of the best American movies in the 1970s, and I think we can all agree that the 1970s was a very good decade for American movies. Spoilers ahead. And it's elephant in the room time. Roman Polanski was a great director, and his contribution to Chinatown lifted the movie to make it a true masterpiece. Polanski was also a rapist dog turd of a human being who never had the guts to face the consequences of his crimes. If anyone feels the need to go into the comments of this video to defend Polanski, please don't. I'm not interested in hearing what you have to say, nor are most of my viewers. On with the show. Robert Towne, the screenwriter for Chinatown, was a friend of Jack Nicholson's from their days working with Roger Corman in the late 1950s. He convinced producer Robert Evans to give him $25,000 to write a script after declining Evans' offer to write a script for The Great Gatsby, even though Evans offered him $175,000 to do it. Towne didn't think he could write as good as F. Scott Fitzgerald. Robert Towne wrote the role of Jake Gittes, the private eye specialising in matrimonial work, for Jack Nicholson. For the pivotal role of Evelyn Cross Mulray, Evans wanted Jane Fonda, but Polanski insisted on Faye Dunaway. For Noah Cross, one of the most despicable villains in movie history, we got John Huston, who, apart from being an accomplished writer and director as well as an actor, he was the father of Nicholson's partner at the time, Angelica Huston, so they already had a relationship. Chinatown is a classic, and rightly so. The plot is tight, the characters are incredibly well written, and while acknowledging the past of film noir, it takes the genre much, much further than any movie before it. As Jake gets deeply into investigating the murder of Evelyn Mulray's husband Hollis, he finds out about Noah Cross's scheme to make millions by controlling the water supply of Los Angeles, and he finds out the reasons why Cross is so interested in the young woman everyone thinks was Hollis's girlfriend. Jake doesn't know where he is. He's told repeatedly by several people that he doesn't really know what's going on.
You may think you know what you're dealing with, but believe me, you don't.
And right up until the end, he doesn't believe it. One of the genius things of Chinatown's script is that it keeps Jake Gittes as a man of the 1930s. In so many movies, the protagonist is actually contemporary, regardless of when the movie is set. But Jake Gittes is firmly a man of his decade, and that makes the movie much, much more interesting than it would were he a 1970s man in a 1930s setting. And Chinatown is that rare film that improves on a second viewing. Rewatching it, you realise that the core of the film is Evelyn's story, not Jake's. Watching Faye Dunaway's acting and knowing what we know after the first watch, it's all there. Every word, action and reaction of that character is painfully heavy with the weight of her secrets and her need to escape her past with her daughter.
Understand? Or is it too tough for you?
Movies like this play differently as our culture changes, being more informed now about rape and incest. The big revelation of Chinatown isn't as shocking as it once was. However, given our current awareness of the prevalence of wealthy sexual predators, the tragic ending lands a lot harder.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
For the second time in his life, Jake has tried to help a woman he cared about, and through circumstance, his actions made it worse for her.
I was trying to keep someone from being hurt. I ended up making sure that she was hurt.
Chinatown was, is, and will always be a classic of cinema. In 1990, 16 years after Chinatown landed, we got The Two Jakes, the sequel to the movie. This Chinatown sequel had a troubled birth. Robert Towne finished the script in 1984. The producer Robert Evans wanted to do an acting comeback, he'd been an actor in the 1950s, to play the second Jake in the movie, Jake Berman. Robert Towne was set to direct the film. In 1985, the movie was about to shoot. Then Robert Evans decided he didn't want to get a 1940s haircut, partly because the scars from his recent plastic surgery would show. The production was cancelled, people were out of pocket, there were threats of lawsuits, and things got weird for 4 years. At one stage, there was talk of Harrison Ford playing Jake Gittes and Roy Scheider playing Jake Berman. In 1989, Nicholson took over directing the film from Robert Towne and took responsibility for rewriting the script, which he said was only about 80% complete anyway. The film was shot, and the three main players, Nicholson, the director and actor, Evans, the producer, and Towne, the screenwriter, had a falling out, which they never reconciled about. So is The Two Jakes any good? It starts in 1948. Jake Gittes' detective agency is doing well. Errol Flynn knows who he is.
I'm here with Flynn.
Give him my best.
Jake says hello.
Hello, Jake.
And he's engaged to a beautiful, younger and wealthy woman. A real estate developer, Jake Berman, played by Harvey Keitel, hires Jake Gittes to get the evidence that his wife is sleeping with someone at a motel. That's how divorces were done in the past. Someone had to be the villain for the courts to permit a decree nisi. Berman enters the hotel room to get the evidence and shoots the guy who's nailing his wife, who happens to be his business partner, Mark Bodine. Jake Gittes then finds himself an unwilling accomplice in a murder committed by a man whom he kind of likes. Reviewing the wire recording of the confrontation in the hotel room, Jake hears Bodine and Mrs. Berman mention Catherine Mulray, the daughter of Evelyn from Chinatown. This links the murder to the events of 11 years before. Older and wider, Jake is also wiser than he was, to a point. As he investigates the murder and the motive, he encounters Bodine's wife, played by Madeleine Stowe, and Jake's liaison with her is probably the weakest part of the movie. He also visits Evelyn's old servant, Kong, played as he was in Chinatown by James Hong. Kong is given more to do here, and Hong's acting gives us a compassionate man who respects Jake's trauma. It's a nice little role for this veteran character actor.
If she's in trouble, I just want to help her, that's all.
No, if she is in trouble, you would not be the one to help. Like her, you are a prisoner of the past. You would do her more harm than good.
The revelation of Jake Berman's motives and the fate of Catherine Mulray and Jake Gittes' epiphany at the end of the movie really work for me. The two Jakes also uses period music well, from Peggy Lee's Don't Smoke in Bed, a song about a woman ending a marriage, to Joe Stafford singing Haunted Heart over the end titles. This movie's soundtrack really nails its time and place. The Two Jakes isn't the masterwork that Chinatown is, but it's an honest and honourable continuation of Jake's story. Even when sequels aren't as groundbreakingly wonderful as the first film, I like to watch the full saga. Some movie series jump the shark, but this one definitely didn't. The Two Jakes is about trauma, memory and loss. It demonstrates the lingering legacy of abuse, and for me at least, the way it does so rings true. Movies don't only exist to entertain us. Cinema is not just a sugar rush. Storytelling has a million different forms. I watch Chinatown and The Two Jakes every couple of years, and I always see new things in them because I've changed in those years. The two movies together make a whole that is greater than their parts, and that's pretty much all you can ask for a sequel. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing. It means a lot to the channel. Also hitting the like button and the notification bell so I can annoy you when I've got a new video out. You can also support the channel at patreon.com/paleocinema. And on Saturday, I'm doing my next video where it's going to be a live stream of movie recommendations. And I'm going to give you the second of my Actor of the Weeks, which is going to be an interesting one, so stick around for that. Just to finish up, get the jab if you haven't already. Watch good movies, watch bad movies. Watch some classic films from the 1970s because there are a lot of good movies in that decade. And I'll catch you next time.